Been looking forward to this podcast for a long time. Welcome to Century Insurance's next podcast. Have a friend of mine, Jeremy Statler, with us here today, and just been interested in hearing from Jeremy about his family business that he's involved in and a little bit of background about it. I'll let you go ahead and introduce yourself, Jeremy.
Yeah. Thanks, Gary. I'm Jeremy Statler. I own and run Statler Construction Incorporated. We're a residential construction business. Our office is about 4.5 miles south of Kelowna. And I've been doing this. I joined my dad in 1997, so I've been going on 23 years now that I've been working in the construction field. So,
excellent. A little bit, you kind of led into it a little bit. And the first question I had was just to ask you to tell us a little bit about your family. So if you would maybe go back and we can kind of break it down if you want, but talk about your dad a little bit. One reason this means so much to me, I lost my father at a younger age, and I know you lost your dad early as well. Mm-hmm. And so the impact that has sometimes on how we function in life, or just how we, your business transitioned probably a little differently that way. So if you can give me a little history on how Statler Construction started maybe, and then your family.
Yeah, my growing up, my dad was a hard worker, and he was always looking for an extra way to make a living. And my mom was able to stay home with us for a big part. He always had a full-time job plus. He farmed a little bit. He managed the meat department at Hy-Vee for many years. He ended up buying Boyd's Sausage Company in Washington when I was in junior high. But he was always looking for ways to supplement, basically. And when he had Boyd's, it's kind of a seasonal jobs, meaning wintertime, deer processing, Christmas was really busy, the summer was slower. And so he kind of got into construction during that time, selling and building buildings, and then eventually into homes as well, just kind of as a sideline that ended up growing into a lot bigger business that became his full-time deal.
Okay.
So, yeah, that's kind of where that started. After I went to college, University of Iowa, got my business degree. At the time, he was just kind of starting to get into construction. To be honest, I had no intention of ever getting into construction. My view of it was, it's seasonal. There's ups and downs. It's cold in Iowa in the winter. You can't do stuff.
Right.
Got my business degree, moved to California right after I graduated from college, because my wife, now fiance at the time, lived out there.
Okay.
So I was going to go conquer corporate America, get into human resources, HR, something, in the business realm. And when I was out there, I went to work for a friend of ours who was a general contractor until I found another job.
Right.
And we got along really well. He brought me in the office and had me working on stuff, and just kept saying, "Oh man, nobody works like you Iowa kids, you need to come work for me. We can do a lot." And I'm like, well, and I told him some of those same kind of things why I didn't think construction. He's like, construction's the biggest industry in the world. Anywhere you go, you can, there's going to be, they need construction. So that kind of resonated with me a little bit. And so I finally said, well, this is what I think I need to make, and you got it. So I ended up going to work with him for almost 3 years out there.
Okay.
And at the time, my dad's construction side of his business was growing bigger and bigger, the place where it was like full-time for him. And we had talked, and he kind of always planned on coming back to Iowa when we were ready to raise a family. But he had grown his business to a place he needed some help.
Okay.
And invited me, so they'd love to have me come work with them. No pressure if you're not ready, but he's going to have to hire somebody. So may not be a job there when we wanted to. So 1997, we ended up moving back and going to business with him. So,
and then a little bit about your own family. You're married.
Yep. Yeah, I've been married next week after next, be 25 years.
Congratulations.
So, yeah, that's exciting. We have 3 kids. My oldest is a junior at the University of Iowa. He's going into business not super sure yet
Yeah.
what he's going to do. My daughter is a freshman at Kirkwood in the agricultural program, plans to go into Iowa State,
Okay.
get her ag science degree. And then my youngest son, Elijah, is he's in 6th grade this year, and he was a little bit of a surprise. It was a good surprise, but
Yeah.
it's kind of funny. Ever since teachers, they always ask you what you want to be when you grow up. Well, he is the one of the 3 that ever since then said he's going to take over Statler Construction. So
Well,
kind of puts the pressure on me to keep things rolling.
Right.
And but so far that story has stayed the same.
can
So,
also be exciting to
Yeah.
have somebody want to follow your lead.
yeah.
A little bit about, one, I had the privilege of learning to know who George or your dad was, and just always in my mind, he was somebody, no matter where you met him, you just took him as a person who, one, he was friendly, but he also always had character. So it was that was kind of my mindset. If you dealt with George, you were going to get a fair deal.
Yeah.
But, and I enjoyed meeting him. He was just a very genuine person.
Mm-hmm.
When his accident happened, do you want to share a little bit about that maybe, and kind of what challenges you faced in the business through that?
Yeah, well, and maybe to back up a little bit more, I guess, about the story with that when we went into business together. When I joined him, he was primarily building homes. We were doing a lot of post-frame construction at the time too, but he would, he'd sell a house, and his contract was a handwritten duplicate copy. One, if it was a complex or a big house, maybe 2 sheets, with a price. I mean, about as close to a handshake as you could get. And I'm like, Dad, we got to give a little more details and explain what is and isn't included and stuff. He's like, hey, if you want to tackle that, go right ahead. Which that was one of the really nice things about the guy I was working for in California. He showed me how to write a proposal, a scope of work, and do that side of things. And so just kind of eventually I worked into taking over the office side of things.
Okay.
And Dad hated the office. He wanted to be out on the job, meeting people.
Right.
He was he put 50,000 miles a year on his truck just like that, and just because he was always out there. And like you said, he didn't have any enemies. I mean,
No.
everybody loved him,
Right.
and he was great to work with. So our partnership was great. I'm so thankful for the time that we were together, about 11 years before he
Okay.
had his accident. And, that was a daily deal.
Right.
And so I often reflect back, or would tell people too, that, that 11 years I got to spend every day with him.
Right.
So in many ways, I'm very fortunate for that.
Right.
Because even though I lost him way too young, I probably got to spend more time with him than most kids do
Right.
over a
Right.
lifetime. So
Right.
definitely molded, who I am, but also built our business. I mean,
Right.
he built a very strong foundation for our business, which the year he passed, 2008, was a very tough time
Yes.
in the construction real
It
estate
was.
kind of field. And so it was tough, but we were able to make through. Dad often used to say, when he started out, he wasn't making a fortune, and he just said, the more homes, the more satisfied customers that we can get out there. When times get tough, the referrals and the good word is what's going to keep us in business.
Right.
There's no doubt in my mind in that couple of years coming out of that I was able to reap the rewards
Yeah.
of that.
Yeah.
Because things weren't near as good as they were, but we survived.
Yeah.
And a lot of that is because of referrals and business that
Just
we
the
had.
quality and the integrity he had built in.
Yep.
You guys did have a partnership already in place, and you kind of fulfilled some of the areas that he didn't want to work in.
Yep.
So going through that transition, you had to kind of shift over and take over probably some of his role as well during that. I mean, can you talk about that a little?
Yeah, it's definitely was a stretching time. I mean, in a sense, because the economy wasn't as good, it was probably a blessing because things weren't quite as crazy as they were, a few years before. And so that made it a little bit easier to work through that transition. My wife, Carrie, also worked in the business and had for 3 or 4 years prior to his accident. So that kind of helped too. She does all of our computer book work, QuickBooks and stuff like that. So she was able to take on a little bit more of the stuff that I did. I was able to do a little bit more of the on the job. So basically I kind of ran the office and Dad ran the field.
Yeah.
Another big benefit that we had, my brother-in-law Claire works for us. He's worked for us for over 20 years now too.
Okay.
And so, at the time he was kind of the hit list, you know, he was the one that did a lot of the things need fixed or whatever. He was the one that got to deal with that. And so we talked to a few other people, and I interviewed a few people, but kind of went back to Claire, and he basically expressed the interest to step up and kind of take over a lot of what Dad did as far as like the on the job oversight. And I don't think Dad would mind me saying, I think in many aspects Claire does it a little bit better. 2 parts. One, because he was hands-on fixing if there's a leak or something, so he could see the importance of why things have to be flashed and done right the first time. Where Dad, like we talked before, he was everybody's friend, you know, and so he wasn't. Sometimes in construction, you kind of have to be a hard ass, pardon my language, but you just have to say, no, that's not the way it's going to be done. I don't care if you just did that, tear it apart, redo it, whatever. Claire has no problems doing that. Yeah. And Dad, of course, wasn't going to let stuff slide, but I'd say there was probably times where he's like, well, he took the benefit of the doubt instead of, no, we're going to make darn sure that it's not. So,
for sake of relationship, he might let somebody.
Yep. So Claire kind of took over that side of things, where that really helped us keep things rolling that way.
The transition. Mm-hmm. Tell us a little bit about your business. I mean, obviously, I know what you do, and I'm sure there's a lot of locals, but just for sake of the audience, what is the heart of your business at this point?
So we kind of had to fine tune a little bit, where when it was Dad and I, we both did a lot of sales, and we did, a lot of both sides of things. We used to build a lot of post frame, sheds and buildings and shops and stuff like that. So we tried doing that for a while. I had a salesman that I hired, and worked out okay, but it just really came to find out, it's hard to get somebody to really have the care and to do things the way that you want to do them. Right. And you're the one that's responsible for it. Right. And so came to find out we really needed to focus. If it's just going to be me doing all the sales and the marketing and all that kind of stuff, I had to focus. And so new home construction is by far the majority of what we do. We might do a little addition, if you're not really even so much that, but like finishing a basement or a small commercial project or something like that. But new home construction is really what we feel that we do well and have chose to focus on, and that's what keeps us busy year after year. So, and we kind of covered a little bit, but what drew you back to the family business? I mean, were there some things outside of the fact that your dad had a business and needed some help? I mean, it's you talk a little bit about that relationship. I knew I was always going to get into business. Okay. All through school, I mean, I knew business was where I wanted to be, and obviously we got my degree in that. I remember taking the test in high school that test what you should be, whatever, and it's like, this is stupid. You answer the questions. I knew what I was going to be, and I knew it was going to tell me. So I knew I always wanted to be in business of some sort. So I'd say that's more of my specialty than construction per se. Of course, I've learned a lot about construction over the last 23 years, but the business side of it is more on where I am. And so that opportunity was attractive, of course. Okay. I had got a little experience working. I mean, the guy I worked for in California, we did some high-end stuff like in Beverly Hills. We worked on Rodeo Drive and Prada store and stuff like that. So I got some really good experience, but a little bit different. But I'd say that the fact that my wife's family lives here in town also, and did at the time, we knew when we were ready to start a family, this is where we wanted to be. Right. I guess leaving Iowa, Going to California gave me a whole new appreciation for Kelowna
Yes.
and Iowa. Blue skies, white clouds, not getting stuck in traffic
Right.
has a lot. Gave me a whole new appreciation, which I think if I wouldn't have left, I wouldn't have got that ever.
Right.
I always would have wondered what's out there.
Right.
But very, very thankful to be here and raise our family here and have our business here.
Kind of were able to get away and take your internship, essentially,
Yep.
and go somewhere else.
Yep.
The next two questions I have, and I don't really know, I'm going to combine them a little bit. I'd like to talk a little bit about the type of construction that you do. And of course, the question I actually had before that was what sets you apart from your competition. But I really think maybe if you talk about your construction, you're going to answer both of them.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe you can give us some of the advantages of that type of construction.
Sure. So our type of construction is a little bit unique, but honestly, it boggles me why there's not more of it that happens. So the homes we build, we use panelized construction, or what it's most commonly known as. And the downside is that a lot of people don't know that term. It's just not a common thing. But basically, I work with a company. Amwood Homes is the company we work with, that they do all my design and engineering. So they'll draw our plans. They'll make sure everything's done and drawn right. And then they also will build the interior walls. So the analogy I often give is it's like, when you watch a stick builder is the other term where somebody goes out and builds it on site. It's probably a little more common, or a lot more common around here. But when they go to build their roof, they buy their trusses already built. Well, why do they do that? Well, because you can get more uniform, better quality roof system if it's built ahead of time like that. Well, we're doing the same thing with our walls. So just like they buy all their trusses so they can take them and set them in place, the engineer, the designers take a floor plan once it's designed, and they build every wall ahead of time, put a number on it, and so we know what order to go with. Load it on a flatbed truck, bring it to the site. I've got the foundation. We got the foundation all done, ready to go. The floor system is also built in 8-foot wide sections. So the first thing they do, take the floor, pick it up, set it in place. So it's the floor joist with the sheeting already on it.
Okay.
Set it in place. Take the next piece, which is designed to overlap. The sheeting is designed to overlap so it fits seamlessly. Work their way across. So usually by noon, we've got the floor installed on the house. Take lunch, come back. Then we start setting walls. So they just take one wall at a time. So the exterior walls, they have the sheeting on it already. A lot of them will have a window, might even be installed. The tie-back house wrap is already on it. So just take a wall, set it in place, nail it down, brace it off, go to the next wall. Just kind of work their way like a big puzzle or something, you might say. But usually by the end of the first day, we've got the floor down and all the walls up, at least the exterior, most of the interior. Second day, finish setting a few walls. We start setting trusses. So once the walls are up, it's just like a stick-built house. I mean, trusses come to us just like they do to them.
Sure.
So second day, we're setting trusses. By the end of that second day, often we have some of the trusses are done, some of the sheeting's on. Usually by the end of the third day, we've got that house covered, sheeted, everything. Iowa is very inclement, or the
weather is a factor.
Weather changes from day to day. So I'm not going to say we never get rained on, but we usually are able to get it up and closed in. We get the roofer there to get the felt on the roof. By the end of the week, we've got that house covered and out of the weather. So it doesn't matter if it rains, whatever. Right. And we're just I feel that gives us a better product.
Okay.
The materials can get wet. It's okay, but the less wet they get, the better they are.
Right.
And so that's kind of the big difference between us and the regular stick builder, whatever, is that just how quick we're able to do that.
So you get a very consistent, uniform product typically because it's always built in jigs and in a factory where it's...
Yeah, it's built in this big warehouse where they got tables like this with, jigs and angles. And they have a plant. Amwood Homes has a plant in Madison, Wisconsin, and they have a plant in Toledo, Iowa. Most of our stuff comes out of Toledo, a little over an hour away.
Yeah.
That plant's not as high-tech as what the Madison one. The Madison one is every board is cut by a computer-run saw.
Okay.
Toledo's not quite that tech. They get a cut list, and there's one guy that just stands and he cuts every header, cripple,
Right.
odd size board, whatever, marks it, puts it on a cart, sends it down to some other guys that build it. So it's just
Right.
still a lot more efficient.
Right.
Materials are stored inside, so they're not outside, subject to heat, rain, humidity,
Right.
whatever. So usually come in a lot better shape.
And the turnaround time on your home is probably somewhat quicker
It
overall.
It can be, but realistically, where I'd say an average framing crew might frame that house that we're doing in 3 days in 2 to 3 weeks. So that part isn't a huge deal. But for us, we tend to work in a lot of rural Iowa. And so it's a lot harder when I get out to Harper, Iowa, where we're doing a house, or South English, or down by Agency. I mean, you're out in the middle of nowhere.
Right.
And so
logistically, it's still a challenge.
Logistically, finding, and getting construction crews that will go to these areas and build for me is tougher, where when we do it this way, we've got a good crew that's been doing it for probably 8 to 10 years. It's an Amish crew out of the Bloomfield-Drakesville area.
Yes.
So they come in and those guys work. I mean,
Yes,
they get that
they do.
house up and enclosed in, and so then we can do the rest. But speed-wise, yes. So we can save a little bit of time there, but we're still subject to, a lot of these small towns. We're working with a plumber that might have 3 guys, or a heating guy, or electrician that it's him and a helper. So it can go a lot faster, but sometimes it doesn't.
So you do work with some of the local
Yeah.
subs or the local contractors as well when you're in different communities.
Yeah, especially the service items.
Mm-hmm.
So heating, plumbing, electrical, things that a customer may have a service call for, or, hey, this faucet's dripping, or my furnace isn't working. I want to find people as close as possible. Concrete isn't something you have a callback on, or so like my concrete guys, my drywall guys, my painters, my trim carpenters, they pretty much will go anywhere that we go, which is like a 45-mile radius of here, something like that. But we definitely work on the service related things to find them just as close as possible.
Okay.
Sadly, those people are disappearing. I mean,
they are.
We need tradespeople to do those.
In our line of work,
things.
we see at the rural communities just struggle to support a plumber or an electrician anymore. So.
Yep.
But
so. What
motivates you to expand and grow, or what keeps you from doing it?
That's something we've looked at. We've tried different things. We've struggled with over the years. Where, I feel like talked about we have a good foundation. I feel like in some ways we could do more, but time seems like whenever I've stepped outside of what we really do, it's just you run into things or stuff happens where, it's like, oh, I should put a division in this area down by, Atumwa, where there's not another panelizer builder or something like that. There's an opportunity there, but it kind of comes down to, can I find somebody that does things the way that I want to do it?
Right.
And Claire keeping an eye on things and doing things the right way. It's a challenge to do that. So yeah, we could go expand. Well, I go expand, that means I'm going to have to hire another foreman in that area, helpers for them. I'm going to need more vehicles over there. So it's like, but if I lose control over doing things the way we want to do it, then it's all for naught. So,
well, you say the way we want to do it. I think what I translate that is you want to keep a good eye on the quality.
Absolutely.
And that's kind of where I think what I see or talk about.
Absolutely. I mean,
you don't want to lose that portion of it.
Small town Iowa, if you don't do things right, it's going to travel in a hurry.
Yeah.
And my wife hates going out to eat, she doesn't like going out to eat, but whenever you go anywhere, you run into somebody, and that's great. I love creating those relationships, but that's the reason I don't want to do anything that I wouldn't do for myself.
Right.
Because I don't want to meet them in Hy-Vee or JWs and turn and go the other way, pretend I didn't see him or something.
Right.
Plus, Dad built the business that way. I'm trying to, if my sons want to get into it, I want to create that to where it's strong that they could continue on to.
Maintain that environment.
Yeah, referral is a huge side of things. So.
How does competition influence you? And in your case, it might be a bit unique because you're kind of a little different than most of them.
In a lot of cases, yes, which means something to some people. Other people, it's all about the bottom dollar.
Right.
So competition is healthy. I mean, for one, it keeps you from just being lax and sitting there being satisfied with doing things the way you've always done it and feeling that that's good enough. I mean, it always keeps you on your toes so that make sure you're always moving forward. You're looking for better ways to do things. You're advancing. I want to stay on top of things for my customers as best as possible, where competition helps to do that. If you don't keep improving, somebody else is going to come in and take your spot. So
right. Visions for the future. You mentioned your boys, so
that's a possibility if they choose to.
Yeah.
It's I can't imagine ever retiring. I mean, I'm not a sit at home kind of thing, so I'm in it for the long haul, whether that's for myself and the boys, Abigail, if she ever chose to, or whatever it may be.
Right.
But it's constant. I want to build it the right way, keep it going strong, and keep doing what we're doing. I don't want to put blinders on and pretend like there's nothing else I should ever do. I have to, if there's new, better ways of doing things or other opportunities that I feel we can expand into, I want to be open to it. But because of a couple things we've done, I want to do it smartly.
Right.
So not just jump into something because it looks like it's the next big thing or whatever.
Right.
So make sure that it fits into what we do which, like a big part of our kind of the little motto that I created with our business is taking the headaches out of construction. I'd say that's a big focus for what we do. Is construction is not a perfect, stuff happens,
Right.
It's not going to go right, shortages, broken things, whatever, but I want to make it as easy for customers as possible.
Right.
And so that is always our number one goal. I want to be straight and honest with them. Going back to the competition thing, I've lost many home sales where I've worked with somebody and they came and back to me or called me and said, hey, we're going to go with, Joe Stick Builder, whatever. And he said he could do it for the same. And unfortunately, they may have a perception that building it like that is a better way of doing it, which I strongly disagree with, but whatever. But it's funny how many times that's happened. And I've heard, whether it's it's not usually from them, usually from a friend saying, oh man, the Smiths sure wish they would have went with you. They took way longer. They had way more overruns, which that's a bad, unfortunately, that's a common thing in our industry is cost overruns. And some of it's not avoidable, but I work hard to give people as complete of a price as possible, and we don't have near the changes and overruns that I hear about.
Having worked in the type of business that I do, I run into a lot of people who build houses or just buildings and property.
Mm-hmm.
And there's, an element of people that don't give me too many choices because they just don't picture the finished product. They, narrow it down. Mm-hmm. Others want all the choices, and that's the fun for them.
Mm-hmm.
How do you guys, when you guys go to do like all the build out interior, is it kind of an open book? Do you kind of have paths you can take them down on grades and levels that they can choose?
Yeah, it's a good question, and I see both sides of it. And there's some people, it's like, just give me 3 choices. And when I started working in this business, it was, okay, do you want light, medium, or dark oak? And, that pretty much was it. Well, now I've got 10 shades or 15 shades of oak, maple, cherry, hickory, painted. I mean, it's just unlimited. So I have our office set up to where I have a lot of selections there. I'd say half the people we build for roughly are able to make all their choices at our office.
Oh,
They're not
that's
looking.
wonderful.
Yeah, between that and a model home, I try to have a
Right.
model home up, which also helps to show different things. And a lot of people don't care necessarily. They don't want to look at 20 different faucets. They want a good quality faucet
Right.
that'll work.
Right.
And so I pick not at the cheapest, not the most expensive. I put in my model home, and for a lot of people, that's just fine.
Yeah.
They saw it, they liked it, it was fine.
Yeah.
If people don't, we take the plan, we set up an appointment with H2O Studio. They go in and we send the plans and the specs. They go sit down with a gal and they can pick out from thousands
Whatever
of choices.
they want. Yeah.
Same with flooring, trim, cabinets, carpet, just a
Yeah.
lot of different things where, one thing that I find, like I often work with some of the local flooring companies, Marshalls, if we're kind of in that south area. So I said, hey, give me 3 or 4 of your, best carpets or good options for carpets. And so I'll have those there.
Okay.
Different, same with vinyl plank, we do a lot of. And so one thing, people are often able to keep on budget a whole lot easier if they pick
Right.
out from those. When you go into a flooring store or a tile store, I mean, there's so many choices.
Right.
And what are they showing you? They're showing you the newest, softest, plushest, cushiest.
Right.
Well, of course you want that.
Yeah.
But it's a lot more expensive than just as good a quality,
Yeah.
but not quite as soft and plush or something like that. So you're able to keep on budget a lot. But we have the ability for both, and it's, like I said, it's probably close to 50-50.
Where we see it a lot is just where people come in and they do like a builder's risk policy for this new property, and all of a sudden they're budgeting $250, $350, and they're past it, and they've still got a lot of expense to put into the house to finish it up. So
Yeah.
I think that's one thing I've always heard about Statler Construction too, is you guys do stay on budget and on task a lot with a lot of that, and you communicate, I think, well is one thing I hear. I think the surprise with some builders at times are the client doesn't understand that every time we make a change, it changes the dollar amount that we're working with, and so that's kind of can kind of be where they get in trouble sometimes.
It is, and I work really hard to alleviate that by taking time up front and really talk through it and stuff, because changes, yes, if you do them in the middle, they're often going to be harder, more expensive, if at all possible.
Right.
So I told people many times I'd rather spend a little extra time up front.
Right.
When we get plans back, I talk through them. I talk through the way a door swings or where it is, or how you're going to arrange your furniture. Have you thought about this? Have you thought about that? And so often we can work through a lot of that stuff through.
Yeah.
So we alleviate a lot of that.
And I know you've built a few houses for yourself, which has probably been helpful for you to see how the different designs function for somebody else as well. I didn't put this down, but I'm just curious, and I should have maybe asked you. It'll give you a little warning on this. Do you have any idea about how many homes a year you build?
On average, 8 to 12 a
Okay.
year. Where when Dad was with me, there was times we did 20 to 24 a
Okay.
year. But they weren't quite as complicated, a little simpler designs at that time too. So
And any idea how many you've built in the history of the company?
something I really should know. I know at one time when Dad was with me, we counted it was 400. So we've got to be up in that 500.
I was going to say
500 plus range,
Yeah.
counting when he built his first house in 1990 for himself.
Yeah.
And so it kind of went from there. So
One thing I find unique in you saying that, because I also know some of the relationships you have with some of your subcontractors, and I know some of those dated all the way back to the very beginning or very close to that time.
yeah.
So it's just interesting that you've always maintained those relationships. And
Yep. Which it's, there's many contractors out there, and there's always somebody that'll do things cheaper, but cheaper is not always the better way of
No.
going, where how I really judge contractors is how they take care of things if there's an issue.
yes.
There's going to be issues. So if
Yes.
they're going to say, forget it. That's not my fault. It's yours. We're probably not going to work together for very long.
Right.
If they work with me and say, hey, this is what we got to do to make it right, or whatever,
Right.
then, hey, we're all human. We're all going to make
Yes.
mistakes. We all have employees that stuff happens.
Right.
So how are we going to take care of it? It's a really important piece.
To wrap this up, do you have any closing statements, sales pitch, and elevator speech you want to put out there?
I think we covered it
Okay.
pretty well. I mean, I'm very thankful for the community, the area that we build. I'm thankful we've got a really good team, besides Claire working for me for 20 years plus. I mean, he's a vital part of, he has way more construction knowledge than I do, and he's a vital part of making stuff happen on the jobs.
Right.
But I've got 3 other guys, 2 of them that have been with me, one for almost 20 years, one for, Scott's been with me for probably almost 20 years. Damon's worked for me several years, left and came back. He's been with me, 6, 7, 8 years, something like that. Another guy we hired here last year has a lot of construction experience, but we've got a really good team.
Yes.
It takes a team to make stuff happen.
Right.
I can't do it all myself. I got to have guys that care about stuff as much as I do. And not only my employees, and Carrie, of course, who keeps me straight on all our books and billings and stuff, but subcontractors. We're very fortunate to work in this area where we've got a really good crew. I mean, over and over, I hear from customers just how nice everybody was and how much they appreciate, construction can be kind of a rough crowd, but it doesn't have to be. And we're not gonna put up with the stuff that we don't want in our own homes.
Right.
And that's really what our goal. And I know Claire does it almost to a fault, where if he wouldn't do it for himself, he's not going to let it happen to you. And he worries about it if it's not.
Yes.
It's like, man, you did all you can do. we just gotta, what do we gotta do to learn, to improve, to not let it happen again, fix it, whatever it may be. But he really, and the guys, they really care about doing it right. And it's not about how fast and cheap and easy we can do it. If there's ever a thing where this is what it's going to take to really make it right, it's what we're going to do. So,
okay.
Yeah.
Care if I just look in the camera and wrap it up?
Yeah, sure.
Okay.
As we wrap up this podcast with Jeremy from Statler Construction, I'm grateful as a friend that we had this opportunity, and then also as a client with Statler Construction. I encourage everybody to go out to Statler Construction's website, look at the products that they have, and ask for some reviews. If you're looking at building a home, they've got a quality product. They do a great job in the community. They give back to the local community they live in. And it has been my pleasure to spend this time with Jeremy and learn more about his business and hear a little bit about his dad and the past in which he grew up and moved into the business and has taken it on. Thank you.